And with more on the investigation into police corruption and organized crime, we bring in Ian Scott, the former director of the province's Special Investigations Unit. Ian, thank you so much for being with us today. And I want to use the police chief's words from yesterday. One day later, it is still unsettling to hear this investigation, the details of it. Your background is in investigations here from 2008 to 2013. You were director of the SIU. What questions are you asking?
Well, I'm still, in shock as well as I think most of the public is, and frankly, the police community as well, because I understand some of this targeting might have involved other police officers. We know without a doubt that a corrections officer, a fairly high-ranking one, a unit commander at the Toronto South Detention Center, his house was targeted. That relates to the attempt murder charge. The real question here is how do we restore public trust in the police in this incident, or these many incidents? The working theory right now of this investigation is that York Region investigators started to look at the home invasion because his house was in York, and from there they found out that there was a Toronto police officer leaking information to organized crime. From that point, it spiraled and ended up involving 7 other police officers. Now, this is extremely serious. Uh, we have not only these particular incidents, but there's a whole other sort of chapter to this, which is how many other police officers knew what was going on. Apparently, this one officer was recruiting other officers to join, and basically, well, it is a criminal conspiracy. These are agreements to commit illegal acts, which are to access the confidential data system within the Toronto Police Service and presumably sell the information to organized crime figures. And we see the result.
And
We know that there's one officer who was involved, and he was speaking to, obviously, 7 other ones. But did he only speak to 7 others? Was he trying to recruit others who didn't say anything? Of these 8 officers who are now charged, did anyone in those detachments know what was going on? They had a duty in the act, the Community Safety and Policing Act, to bring allegations of misconduct to their superiors. And misconduct is much broader than even criminal acts. It's any misconduct as stated in the Community Safety and Policing Act. This aspect has not been addressed at all. But
yeah.
it does mean that, unfortunately, the corruption issues extend further than the 7 or 8 charged officers.
Yeah, you're raising some very important questions that remain unanswered. And I know you don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to figure out just how deep this runs. But as an investigator, how do you know just how many people are involved here?
Well, you don't know. You don't really know. I mean, we know with the charges, there's at least 8 Toronto police officers. Presumably, the investigation is continuing as we speak, and there may be more charges laid. But to get to the next level is really going to be a systemic investigation. Yes, the officer I was referring to, the first one, is Constable Barnhart. He appears to be the master of ceremonies here. But it's really what we need, and we may get through the investigation report by the inspector of policing, will be answers to the more systemic issues.
Does that also include the police database? I mean, you're hearing that a police officer allegedly is leaking information within an institution that is supposed to be trusted and protected. That information allegedly in the hands of dangerous criminals, then it leads to questions about whether or not public information is safe here and whether or not there needs to be a deeper investigation, a systemic one, to figure out whether or not this database is safe, and the duty to report aspect of who knew what.
Yeah, I mean, the data is funny. I was been a prosecutor and a lawyer for over 40 years, and this issue of access to the database improperly by policing has reared its ugly head many times. It doesn't usually involve organized crimes. It's usually officers who are accessing the database to find out what's going on with former girlfriends or the new boyfriends of their ex-girlfriends. it's obviously improper. It's only supposed to be accessed for specific police purposes. And the irony of all this, and I'm sure this is the reason why the breadcrumbs went to Constable Barnhart, is that I mean, I've seen the data printouts on this. You can tell very quickly who has accessed these CPIC databases. You have to enter your badge number. Now, there's still ways of monkeying with the system by entering other police officers' badge numbers, for example, but the tracing on this can be very immediate and very formidable. I'm sure that's the reason why we have these officers charged, is that this investigation very quickly led to these names as accessing improperly the database. Now,
It's public
that can be
information.
in the criminal code, breach of trust and misuse of confidential information, but it's also misconduct, which can be dealt with, pretty quickly if it's a relatively benign reason for accessing that database. But this is so much more serious because this was giving information. I presume they sold it. I can't imagine they gave it freely to organized crime. And as this case was unfolding over the years, those officers who gave that information must have realized the consequences by the shooting up of all these houses.
And
So
should
very
the public
serious.
be concerned about this? Is there public information in these databases that can be accessed or have been accessed? I don't think we have that information.
Well, we don't know exactly what's been accessed, but I've seen many printouts of CPIC. Yeah, there's all kinds of information. There's obviously information of residences, which was very important here. That was the information that appeared to be important. I mean, there's criminal records, any contact with the police, often contact with mental health authorities as well. There was a case a few years ago where at the border, the Americans who have access to that database refused entry of someone who had some mental health issues. So, there's a lot of information on there. Information that, frankly, you and I don't even know. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what's on the database about me. But every time you're stopped and the police run the computer check in their car, all this information comes up. That's how they find out about warrants, for example, outstanding warrants. I mean, it's a very valuable database, and it's nationwide. It's CPIC, Canadian Police Information Center. So, it's an extremely valuable source of information. Every time somebody wants to go and get a check to have contact with young people, for example, their name will be run through that database.
Ian, I don't want to let you go before I ask you this questions. Of course, we don't have complete details of all the cases and the depth of just how deep this goes. Is there a scenario or a situation where the SIU gets involved at all?
SIU's mandate is quite very specific. It's when police officers are alleged to have been involved in death, serious injury, or allegation of sexual assault. That's the reason why, and I think quite rightly, this probe was not referred to the SIU at this point. So far, it looks like the real mischief of the police here is selling the information. Now, it could make them, if they're on knowledge, party to some of these offenses. But at this point, from what we know, it's not the police officers who are actually going out and shooting up houses. Thankfully, as bad as all this is.
Right. Okay. And just one note that the allegations against the officers, they have not been proven in court here as this investigation remains ongoing. Ian Scott, we do want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.